From Montana's news leader, this is the MTN Noon News.
Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us on the Noon News. I'm Andrea Lutz. Montana pharmacies say a reinstated rule could help them provide vaccines and COVID testing better to the front lines. We'll have that story in just a minute. But first, COVID-19 booster shots could soon be in the arms of some Americans. Here's today's leading look. The FDA approved the Pfizer booster shots for senior citizens and those at high risk. And frontline workers may also be in line for the booster. The CDC must weigh in to make it final, but President Joe Biden pledged to send additional doses to countries that need them most. Deaths from COVID have reached an average of more than 1,900 a day. That's a peak from early March. It's mostly unvaccinated people who are dying from COVID, but there are some experiencing breakthrough infections. Those are also mild cases. Hospital systems fear a new wave of flu cases, though, could bring more strain on our health workers. Bozeman Health is taking additional steps to fight the rising COVID infection in Gallatin County. The hospital's old nursery is now transformed into a surge space. Deaconess is currently treating 26 COVID patients, and critical care is at 80% capacity. Officials say the number of hospitalized COVID patients is still way too many. Tourists are spending more time in Billings, and there's new numbers to prove it. Take a look at the lodging tax revenue in Yellowstone County. Revenue is up more than 150% from the summer of 2020, but the county also brought in almost $200,000. And the additional funding is welcome news for hotel owners who expected low rates beyond this year. That's today's leading look.
Well, the latest drought data came out, and the good news is it hadn't gotten any worse. The bad news is most of us hadn't really gotten any better. The only place really where we've seen some improvement, northwest corner of the state, Kalispell, Libby, Eureka, Polson included in that, but most of us, no change. We've got some form of drought in place, and here's a number I want to throw out at you. Almost 194 million acres of U.S. crops in some form of drought at the present time. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of rain in the forecast over the next several days, maybe into the first part of next week, as we have high pressure taking over. Although we will see some cloud cover today, that's just going to help keep those temperatures down as we're in the wake of a cold front. But do we get warmer? I'll have details coming up.
Montana Pharmacies came out in force Wednesday to speak in favor of an emergency rule they say is vital to help them respond to an increased demand for vaccines and COVID-19 testing. They appeared at a meeting of an interim legislative committee, and we were there too. Just last week, the State Board of Pharmacy issued the rule, which allows pharmacists to supervise more pharmacy technicians or also healthcare professionals like nurses. And as COVID-19 cases and the demand for vaccines and testing increase, pharmacies say they're becoming a go-to source to fill this need.
Pharmacists predict many of the larger sites used for first and second dose COVID shots may not be doing booster shots. They have either shut down or reduced staffing to a very small scale. This will lead to larger workload and burden on those local pharmacies in your local communities and their staffs.
Christy Munson, a pharmacist in Billings, told the Interim Committee on Economic Affairs that the rule will allow pharmacies to continue to help operate large-scale vaccine clinics. And Kimberly Waltz, representing Walgreens, said the initial rule in March enabled the chain to ramp up staffing to meet demand. But that demand is happening again.
However, there is work to be done. It is imperative that we have the staffing flexibility needed to meet what will be an increased demand for COVID-19 vaccines on top of testing and flu vaccines.
Governor Greg Gianforte issued a similar rule in March, but it ended when he revoked his state of emergency order for COVID-19 in June. The governor's office says it supported the move by the Board of Pharmacy to issue a new emergency rule last Tuesday. The Legislative Committee Wednesday took no action on the new rule, which means it will stand for the next 120 days. Reporting from Helena, Mike Dennison, MTN News.